It's important for us to have a sense of community and a sense of giving back. And it's something that, needs to be instilled in everyone's culture. We as Americans are people of good heart and charitable, but we're not disciplined. We're not religious givers. And for the most part, we have given like to our church. Many of us at least give offering. Many of us tithe, that is 10% of our gross income to the church. And some do both. And then others do both and beyond. But that's still, up to now, more the exception than the rule. We need to cultivate a society of givers. In the Latino community is no exception. Today, with our purchasing power, approaching $1 trillion a year, my God, what we could do with any part of that money, just the chump change left. We could fund the education of most of our children pursuing college today, just on the money that falls off the table, if we learn how to give, if we discipline ourselves to give back, to support endowment funds. This is money that is invested and is never spent. It is only through the interest earned that that money is awarded. And to support endowment funds, like here in Hartford, where we have the Latino Endowment Fund, money that I've created 2 endowments myself to support higher education. And this is money that my wife and I have put into it, that money that will outlive us all. As long as those higher institutions of higher learning are in business, Latino students will receive scholarships. And this has been going on now for over 30 years since we created these funds. And the money is all still there. Not a dime has been spent. Only the interest has been awarded. To develop a way of giving for the long term is to support those funds that will be around long after we're gone. And most importantly, though, and to become not just occasional donors, it's just like tithing, even giving when it hurts, when you feel like you could just, gosh, if I just took this money and paid something else with it. But that's not the way to give. It's just to set that money aside. If we learn to set aside contributions, if we learn to set aside gifts, if we learn to consider estate giving, many of us, like myself, are worth more dead than alive. And we ought to be thinking about what to do with what we leave behind. Because whoever in my family, they won't need what I leave behind. They're all young professionals in their own right, and they're going to be okay. I need to be thinking about my estate and what to do with that, to ensure that whatever it can be used for, that it's dedicated for that. And to me, of course, it's education, because to me that's the key to everything. It's just the key to as far as leadership is concerned, being productive citizens is concerned, that everything that we aspire to is just rooted in that need for a good education. And I would, if my life were to mean anything, I would want it to mean that it helped educate more young children. Not just mine. I had 4. They were easy, expensive but easy, because they didn't have to be encouraged to go to college. They just knew that was something they were going to do because they wanted to do, because their mother and father, had 8 degrees between them, so they figured they could get at least 1. But they'll get 2 in due time and things like that, so they'll be fine. It's the other children who have no role models, who have very little of anything to cling on to as far as finding a way to pursue an education. So it's important for our community to develop within our culture that capacity to give beyond those traditional sources, beyond the church, beyond the offering and the tithe, to support things like the Latino Endowment Fund as a way that we can you know, that we can do more together than we can just by ourselves. And the Latino Endowment Fund gives everyone an opportunity to contribute. And because of the collective nature of the fund, you add a little bit here and a little bit there, and before you know it, it adds up to quite a bit of money. Through the endowment fund, this enables people who might be able to give a charitable contribution of $250 a year, and to do it consistently. And that with $250 a year, and you say, well, what good is that going to do? Well, it'll help some, but if you multiply that by 100, or if you multiply that by 1,000, if we get 1,000 people here in Hartford to contribute just $250, that's $250,000. And you do that for 4 years, that's $1 million. So, you know, when you stop and think about how much good is that small check gonna do, think about how much it's going to add up to when you think about it in terms of how many others are doing the same thing. And so we as a community, as a Latino community, need to include that, add that to our repertoire of what we're doing to give back to this nation. Just as we lead the nation in business development growth, we're the largest non-white consumer group in America. Just as all these things come into play, our giving should be no less than that, and support things, very worthwhile efforts like the Latino Endowment Fund.